I was a millionaire 10 times over, but I told my sons I was broke and homeless. They wouldn't let me pass the doorstep. The niece I barely knew took me in that same night. The next morning, I made her the CEO of my company. But before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Lenora Vance. I am 72 years old, and I built Vance Heritage Properties from a one-woman real estate office into a statewide empire. My wealth is measured in skyscrapers and shopping centers. My loneliness is measured in quiet dinners in my penthouse, overlooking the city I conquered. My two sons, Richard and Charles, run divisions within my company. They live in homes my success bought, married women my status attracted, and wait for the day my heart stops so their lives can truly begin. The idea came to me at my own birthday party in my penthouse. The event was flawless, a spectacle of orchids and champagne. Richard and Charles held court, not as my sons, but as rival princes. Their conversation was a thinly veiled battle over who would control the new waterfront development, a project worth millions. Let's be honest, Charles, your team isn't equipped for a portfolio that size, Richard said, swirling his scotch. At least my team turns a profit, unlike your over-leveraged disaster last quarter, Charles shot back. They laughed, but their eyes were cold. They did not look at me, their mother. They looked past me, at the empire draped over my shoulders like a shawl. I saw them clearly in that moment. They were not my heirs. They were auditors, assessing the value of a dying asset. The disappointment was a quiet, final click inside my chest. The next morning, I sat in the timeless office of my attorney, Benjamin Alden. Sunlight streamed across his oak desk. I need you to help me tell a lie, Ben, I said. I laid out the plan. I would become the victim of a catastrophic international investment scam. All my liquid assets would be frozen by fictitious foreign authorities. My properties would be under lien. I would be destitute, a pauper who had lost everything overnight. Benjamin listened, his steepled fingers pressed to his lips. It's a drastic test, Lenora, he said finally. The most important one, I replied. I need to know who they are when the money is gone. Benjamin agreed to back the story. He would confirm the crisis if anyone called. I went to a thrift store in a part of town where no one knew me. I bought a faded polyester dress, a worn coat, and a pair of scuffed shoes. I removed my diamond earrings and my wedding band, placing them in Benjamin's safe. I looked in the mirror. The formidable Lenora Vance was gone. In her place was a tired, frightened old woman. My first visit was to Richard's columned mansion in the hills. A cold drizzle began to fall as I stood at his grand double doors. He answered, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion to utter horror as he took in my appearance. Mother? What on earth? Richard, something terrible has happened. I began weaving the tale of the scam, my voice trembling with a fear that was not entirely an act. I've lost everything. The bank is taking the penthouse. I have nowhere to go. His face did not soften with concern. It hardened with calculation. He glanced over his shoulder into the pristine, silent house. This is incredibly inconvenient. We have the Clarks arriving for dinner in an hour. This is a very important deal for us. You should have been more careful with your finances. He did not ask me to come in. He did not offer a coat. Look, let me call you a car to a hotel. We can talk about this tomorrow when things are less chaotic here. He began to close the door. The message was clear. Your disaster is not welcome in my perfect life. The door shut with a soft, definitive click. The rain was heavier when I reached Charles's sleek, modern loft. His wife, Amanda, opened the door. Her nose wrinkled as if smelling something foul. Lenora? What is this? Charles appeared behind her, his phone to his ear. Hold on, he told the caller. His eyes swept over me. And I saw not a son, but a man assessing a threat to his social standing. Mother, what's going on? You look a mess. I delivered my desperate story again. Amanda took a subtle step back. Charles's mouth set in a thin line. We're in the middle of finalizing the charity gala sponsorship, Mom. We can't have this kind of drama right now. It looks bad. You really should have been more responsible. He shook his head. You need to sort this out on your own. Amanda closed the door, quicker than Richard had. I stood in the cooling rain, the water soaking through my thin coat. The 2 children I had raised, the 2 men I had enriched, had left me on the street. The test was over. They had failed. A profound, hollow cold settled in my bones, deeper than the chill from the rain. I had one contact left in my old phone, a number for my late sister's daughter, a young woman I sent a Christmas card to each year. With numb fingers, I dialed the number for my niece Maya. The phone rang 3 times before a warm, slightly breathless voice answered. Hello. Maya? It's your Aunt Lenora. Aunt Ellie. The concern was instant and genuine. Is everything all right? Are you okay? The simple question, filled with a kindness I had not heard in years, nearly broke my composure. I'm in a bit of a situation, dear. I was wondering if I could see you. Of course. Where are you? I'll come get you. There was no hesitation, only ready action. I gave her the cross streets near Charles's loft, a place of gleaming steel and glass. 20 minutes later, an old, dented sedan pulled to the curb. Maya jumped out, an umbrella in her hand. She was exactly as I remembered from a family funeral 2 years prior. Kind eyes, a sincere smile, and a practical energy. She didn't flinch at my soaked, shabby appearance. She rushed the umbrella over my head. Aunt Ellie, you're soaked through. Let's get you inside the car, it's warm. She guided me gently to the passenger seat, as if I were made of glass. We drove to a modest apartment building in a neighborhood of old trees and faded charm. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor, small and filled with the soft clutter of a creative life. Canvases leaned against walls, sketches were pinned to a board, and a small laptop glowed on a desk. It was the opposite of my son's sterile palaces. It felt alive. You must be freezing, Maya said, helping me out of the wet coat. Let me get you some dry clothes and a towel. I'll put the kettle on. She returned with soft sweatpants and a worn but clean university sweatshirt. She pointed me to the bathroom. When I emerged, wrapped in a towel and wearing her clothes, the scent of ginger tea filled the air. She had set 2 mugs on the small coffee table beside a plate of buttered toast. Here, this will help, she said, handing me a mug. Now tell me what's going on. But only if you want to. We sat on her sofa. I delivered the same story I had given my sons, the sophisticated scam, the frozen accounts, the sudden total ruin. I watched her face as I spoke. Her expression shifted from shock to deep empathy, but never to judgment or disgust. Oh, Aunt Ellie, I'm so sorry, she whispered when I finished. That's terrifying. You must feel so violated. She placed her hand over mine. But listen to me. You are safe here. This is your home for as long as you need it. We will figure this out together, I promise. She asked no probing questions about the money. She expressed no worry about the inconvenience. She simply offered sanctuary. She insisted I take her bed, fetching fresh sheets while she pulled out a worn sleeping bag for the sofa. I'm young and my back is indestructible, she said with a smile that held no resentment. As I lay in her bed that night, listening to the gentle sounds of the city through her single window, I thought of my sons. At that very moment, they were not worrying about my welfare. Benjamin Alden had received their calls. They were frantic, not about their mother's safety, but about the financial exposure and the impact on the company's valuation. Their love had a balance sheet, and I was now a liability. The next morning, I found Maya at her small kitchen table, her laptop open. She was on a website for a local senior legal aid clinic. I was thinking, she said, we should get you in front of a lawyer who specializes in elder fraud. They might know how to freeze things or start an investigation. I have a little saved. We can use it for a consultation. She was ready to spend her meager savings on me, a woman she saw once a year. My own flesh and blood had offered me nothing but a closed door. Thank you, Maya. I said, my voice thick. That is incredibly kind. While she showered, I asked if I could use her laptop to check an old email account for any messages from the bank. She agreed without suspicion. I navigated not to an email server, but to a secure, encrypted portal only Benjamin and I could access. I opened the master file labeled Succession VHP. The document was 50 pages long, detailing the transfer of my entire empire. I scrolled past the sections designating control to Richard and Charles. I deleted their names, I deleted the clauses granting them their vice presidencies and their stock options. In the blank space in the field for primary beneficiary and CEO designate, I typed a new name. I typed it with a steady hand, each letter a testament to the truth I had found in this small, warm apartment. Maya Sorensen. I attached a new, private note to Benjamin. The test is concluded. The results are incontrovertible. Proceed with the transfer to the named beneficiary with all urgency. Terminate Richard and Charles Vance's employment and access, effective immediately upon their notification. I will explain everything soon. I hit send. The deed was done. The course of my life's work changed forever with a click. I closed the browser and cleared the history just as Maya emerged, her hair damp, dressed for the day. Any luck? She asked cheerfully. More than you know, my dear, I said, and for the first time since this began, my smile was completely, utterly real. More than you know. The morning sun filled Maya's small kitchen with a gentle light. I sat at her table, watching her move with an efficiency born of necessity. She was measuring coffee grounds, her brow furrowed in concentration over the humble task. The doorbell rang, a sharp sound in the quiet apartment. I'll get it, she said, wiping her hands on a towel. She opened the door to find Benjamin Alden standing in the hallway. He was impeccably dressed in his usual three-piece suit, a leather portfolio under his arm. A serious-looking woman with a notary public pin stood beside him. Maya Sorensen? Benjamin asked, his voice formal. Yes. Can I help you? Maya replied, confusion clear on her face. You can indeed, Benjamin said, and then his eyes found me over her shoulder. He gave a slight, respectful nod. Ms. Vance, the documents are prepared as you instructed. Maya turned to look at me, her confusion deepening. Ms. Vance? Aunt Ellie, what's happening? I stood and walked to the door. I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The test is over, Maya. The scam was a story. I am not broke. My name is Lenora Vance, of Vance Heritage Properties. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Maya's eyes widened, her mind struggling to reconcile the shabby woman she had taken in with the formidable name she vaguely knew from business headlines. I don't understand. Benjamin stepped inside, his demeanor softening. May we explain? It is rather important. We sat in her living room. Benjamin opened his portfolio. Ms. Sorensen, your aunt recently conducted what we might call a character assessment of her family. You were the final participant. Your actions last night, offering shelter, clothing, food, and unconditional support without any expectation of return, were the sole passing grade. He slid a stack of papers across the coffee table. This is an executed asset transfer. As of 9 o'clock this morning, you are the majority shareholder and CEO designate of Vance Heritage Properties. This is the deed to this apartment building, which is now owned by a trust in your name. This is a banking document showing an irrevocable trust fund, seeded with $10 million, for your personal use and philanthropic interests. Maya stared at the papers, her hand trembling as she touched them. She looked at me, tears welling in her eyes. Aunt Ellie, why? This is too much. I didn't do it for this. I know you didn't, I said, my own eyes misting. That is precisely why you are the only person who should have it. You saw a person, not a portfolio. That is the rarest quality of all. Benjamin then presented my updated last will and testament. To my sons Richard and Charles Vance, he read from a summary, I leave the sum of $1 each, in recognition of the precise value of the comfort they offered me in my hour of need. The entirety of my remaining personal estate is endowed to a new foundation, to be chaired by Maya Sorensen, titled the Sanctuary Fund. Its mandate is to provide housing and comprehensive support for elderly parents who have been abandoned or neglected by their families. At that moment, the storm broke elsewhere. My phone, silenced in my bag, began to vibrate incessantly. I knew it was them. The board had notified them of their immediate termination. Their security access had been revoked. Their empire had vanished before their first cup of coffee. The intercom from the building's front door buzzed furiously. Maya pressed the button. A distorted, furious voice crackled through. Maya, it's Richard Vance. We know she's up there. You tell our mother to get down here right now. She can't do this. I took the intercom. Richard, you had your chance to speak to me last night. You chose to close your door. I am now choosing to close a chapter. The matter is settled. Any further communication can go through Mr. Alden. I released the button and disconnected the intercom wire from the wall. The silence that followed was profound. Maya was looking at me, not with fear, but with a dawning understanding of the depth of the hurt I had carried. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, my dear," I replied. "You have given me back my faith. Now let's go build something meaningful with it." A month later, we were not in a corporate boardroom. We were in a bright, airy architectural office, reviewing blueprints. Maya, now the CEO, pointed to a courtyard garden on the plans. "This is the heart of it," she said. "The first sanctuary residence. It shouldn't feel like an institution. It should feel like a home." I nodded, my heart full. She understood. The empire was no longer a cold monument to wealth, but a living instrument for good. My legacy was no longer a prize to be fought over by vultures, but a seed planted in fertile, compassionate ground. I had sought to discover who my family was, and in doing so, I had finally found my true heir. If a story about the real value of a person and the power of a second chance resonates with you, I ask for your support. Subscribe to this channel. Your choice to subscribe sends a powerful message about the kind of stories that matter. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Remember, the true measure of your life isn't in what you accumulate, but in who you uplift when you have the power to do so. Never confuse wealth with worth, and always cherish the people who see you, and not what you can give them.